and creatives are finding their voice and asserting their agency through this new digital, connected, and virtual world. Their work and expressions are reaching across all divides as they interrogate the past and reimagine what it means to be an African today. Join me, Njeri Wangari, as I engage these creatives, thinkers, makers, and builders for candid conversations on how they are weaving their own thread in this new Africa. Welcome to the Kenyan Poet podcast.
Hakuna Kenya last forever, hata Sunday best ugeuka duster, na slave ugeuka master, ingia kwa makanisa uone vile spaghetti zinachanganya mapasta, na mareverend na mapriest kwa mass occupy space na mass. So mtu usiwe kutreat like you don't matter when you matter. Hata kama ulizaliwa kwa gata, alikuambia man shall not live on bread alone. Kama aliprovide mkate hawezi kushinda na peanut butter. Uko destined for greatness, na mtu asiwe change your mind hata wakathreaten kukupeleka Kenyatta. Kwa binadamu kafara, hasira, hasara, the more nakula ndimu, the more vitu zinazidi kuwa acidic. Binadamu maasidi, utasikia wanasema na kuombea kwa Mola, ukichunguza vizuri unapata ni mola za dental.
Great. Thank you so much, Teardrops, and welcome to the Kenyan Poet podcast. Welcome our listeners, our viewers to the third episode of the Kenyan Poet podcast. I am your host, Njeri Wangari. Now, this episode and this second season of the Kenyan Poet podcast has been made possible by Unique Kenya. And today's guest is Teardrops.
Yes,
welcome to the show.
Asante sana.
Na najua nakukaribisha mara ya pili.
Manze, mara ya kwanza ilikuwa ni many years ago.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Imagine.
Life inaenda sana.
Ulikuwa wapi?
Niko kwa room fulani kwa Huruma. na dream about blender tour dunia, blender tembea, blender perform kwa stages kubwa. Yeah, nilikuwa hapo. Nilikuwa na dream.
Na that time ilikuwa 2011.
Yeah.
Ndio ulikuwa unaanza.
Ilianza 2010 after post election. 2009 ndo nikaingia Nairobi, nilikuja Nairobi 20 something hapo because after post election nilipata nikiwa naishi Nairobi, nikiishi Ushago na grandma wangu. Then nikakam Nairobi after post election 2 years later, nikaanza kupick up from there. Nikaanza na co-act, nikaanza na stage performances, then nika pick up na poetry, then tuka meet up na Kenyan B, then tukawapatana na nyinyi kwa open mic and then
Kenyan B ilienda wapi?
Yuko bado.
But performance ni kama
ana perform but pia na organize events for a young upcoming artist. Ameshikilia bado route venye alikuwa ameshikilia at first. Yeah.
That's good to hear. In case you haven't, you are wondering what we're talking about, go to, I think, the episode 4, season 1. That is when I first featured Teardrops. That was in 2011. Get to listen, and then you will, once you listen to this, then you will see the transformation that has happened. So, and I'm really excited to have you back. Nilikuwa nasema lazima ni kuinvite onto season 2.
Na nimekuwa ni hustle kupatana.
Kukupata, boss.
Kitambo nilikuwa na time sana, nilikuwa kila interview, kila mahali kuchimarket. Squeeze yani niko na job mob sana kuliko interview, but namaanisha ni poa, vitu zimechange around, dimensions zimechange na kila direction pia ni different
and that's a good thing because ulikuwa unaniambia, and we'll start with this. What has your experience been like in a pandemic? Because wasanii wameumia. The creative economy, not just in Kenya but all over the world, creatives and artists, musicians, this pandemic has been the worst because a lot of them have been were relying on performances and shows, and that has not been happening. So what has been your experience been like?
My life has been a pandemic until the pandemic happened. So nilikuwa nishala ni navigate through the pandemic. Nilikuwa nishala ni navigate my own ways. Nilikuwa nisha create my path the survival. Nilikuwa najua this is how I make my daily living, this is how I do, nilikuwa nisha create your path. So when the pandemic came, already my path haikuwa interfered with. Because my path was totally different from everybody's path. So when everybody was coming back to see how things na happen, how can we survive in the pandemic? I've been in the pandemic, I'm a survivor, and I know how to navigate. So during the pandemic, I was walking with God, and I was working with the people who were with me when my life was a pandemic, and we are growing together now.
Yeah. And if you could expand a bit, when you say your life has been a pandemic and some of the things that tuseme kama wasanii wengi, they had not discovered doing gigs online and getting people to pay for virtual gigs, in which ways wewe ulikuwa umejiprepare?
Honestly, me ni spoken word artist. Actually, I'm the most non-spoken word artist in Kenya, maybe Eastern Africa pia. Because nikienda Tanzania, nikienda Juba, I get the same response and I get hapa. It was hard because our poetry hazichezi kwa TV, kwa radio, like any other. There's no program ya fanya, this is a program ya poetry. Hatutajua kuna poets wa Kenya wanakaa hivi, huyu nani anakuanga poet, nowhere. But tutajua musician, utajua hata macrobat huwezi jua. Utajua musician, actually ni musician na politicians wanajulikana kwa hii country.
There's a poet na macrobat wako category moja.
Wako category moja huko hivyo kukula moto. So, unapata ni hustle sana, especially kwa wase wenyewe mko na product na ni ngumu kuisell. Unaona?
Yeah.
So for me nimekuwa nikishigi maisha yangu nikisell poetry, nikisell product. Unaget? So kwa wale nilikuwa na sell hii product, walikuwa already washajua hii product na kaji, walikuwa shai consume. Ikakuwa okay, this is our lifestyle. Before tuanze show zetu lazima tukuwe na poet. Hiyo ni culture nilicreate na tulicreate.
Yeah.
Umepata?
Yeah.
Before anze hii show kuna mashow zenyewe hakuna vile mtatumia song fulani kwa maybe leo tunaangalia story the day of the girl child. Hakuna vile mtachukua tu song fulani inaka either violent ama inaka zile zenye wanajua hizo songs unitumie kama for the campaign. So mnajua these are serious issues and we need someone to talk about serious issues. As much as kutakuwa na education lazima kutakuwa na entertaining. Wakachikia this is a nice slot for the poets. Those are slots zenye tulijenga. So hizi slots ziko and then realize kuna conferences siku hizi zinafanyika kwa Zoom change everything, wanataka opening isiboeke na nini, so wanatafuta kana nani, wanatafuta mtu ana dance anafanya nini, wanataka mtu ana maongelesha. So these are the paths tulikuwa tusha create kitambo. So na ni vitu tulikuwa tushazoeaga kudu hizi ma vitu before, unaona? So hizi vitu ziki happen already tulikuwa tushajua njia zetu za survival na size opportunities ni more, ndio maana tupatikane.
That's a good thing. Now finding the inspiration to write. What has were you affected, like because for most creatives, myself included, when the pandemic started, I struggled. I had a serious writer's block because for me to think and be creative, I need to be out there. And now you're confined, and that has been the experience for a lot of creatives, not just poets, but even musicians or anyone else who's who's a creative. That confinement, because we creatives and confinement ni kama maji na mafuta. They don't get along. So what is that something that you struggle with, or for you it was easy?
For me nikiget writer's block, I know. Najua gani nimeget writer's block. I know my body. Nimekuwa nikiobserve my body.
How does it manifest itself?
One, your creative juice dies and there's nothing interesting about everything. And you realize I have a problem. If there's a sense of humor, you don't laugh about it. You realize there's a problem. You get? So I know my body in a way that if I am depressed, if I am sick, I know my body. And I know this is what I need for my body. Because your body speaks to you in so many ways that you have to learn to listen to it. So when my creative juice dies, I know what to do. And it has been happening and happening. And I realize, okay, my body needs this when you can writer's block. Sometimes, let's assume you are commissioned to a job by some huge organizations.
Inspiration haiko.
And there's no inspiration. You have to inspire inspiration because you need money.
So how do you inspire inspiration?
You just go look for it somewhere else where you can get it. Yeah, because this means money is good. And I've realized when you push your mind to the limits, your mind comes up with creative ideas and it's like, did you have to go this far?
Yeah.
Most of the masterpieces that I've written were written when I had pushed my mind to the limits.
And that is even when you don't feel like writing.
When I don't feel like writing, I'm like, yo, we have to finish job. We have. So when you think about something every time and every day, for like if you started thinking about this podcast before we had to put this
I've been
podcast down.
planning.
And it has been 10 years. The reason that it's been 10 years is because you're like, okay, this thing is happening. This is what you're doing 10 years ago, but before anybody else were doing else. And they were like, what is this? I don't like this online stuff, but now it's the thing.
That's true. And it's very interesting. And we haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
How come Nilikuwa too, I'm recording a podcast? Because then people are like, what the hell is a podcast? Because we didn't have examples of that.
We didn't have an example.
You came through and we recorded and
we were living in the future, and that's the thing.
That was amazing.
We were living in the future. We were living now.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
that's true.
Everything that we did all that time, and that's why my poetry right now is more relevant, because there was an energy going down all that time, 2001, 2009, 2011. All this in Spectrum to Your Life, and down here 2021, me and you again, talking about poetry. You're gonna ask me what's my 10 years ago plan. Maybe you can meet after 10 years ago, after 10 years again, then we talk about poetry. Who knows? I'll be talking about my family. Who knows my poem? I'll be So with writing, it's like that. You push your mind to the level that you can never imagine, and that's why people come up. Oh, that is crazy. Oh, that is sick. Oh, it's not sick. It's new. It's magic. It's new.
That's true.
Yeah. So for me, it's now I don't believe in impossible. I believe if I have to study something maybe for years, I'll be a master at it. And I've been blundering for a lot of time. I've been doing mistakes, and from all my mistakes, I've been learning. I've learned a lot of ways of not making a mistake. But now I'm in my way to know that when I have to write, it comes deep in me. So whatever I write, people believe in it, and they've been believing in it. So it's just giving words life sometimes. That's only inspiration.
Yeah. Let's talk about your creating and writing process. What is that like? How do you decide I am going to write about women? Because I know you're very passionate about writing on women and women's rights and girls. I know you love talking about the realities, the social economic status and that divide where we have people who are extremely rich and at the same time we have people who are extremely poor. How do you come about those subjects and deciding ama ni theme inakuja kwanza ama what? How does that work for you?
It's just a situation. I come from a middle class family. I was raised up in a middle class family. I've been seeing things that for deep down in my heart, I wanted them to change. How things are handled.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm the one facing these things. Get it? So most of the things I write about them, they affect me personally.
Because I was going to ask.
Yes, I have.
If there's poetry that is, deeply personal, because I think as speaking also as a poet, that is the whole essence of poetry, that it's deep feelings, whether it is your own experiences that you've gone through or you have witnessed, that really struck a nerve with you. So for you, you're saying that there's also that element of personal things that you've gone through. Yeah,
just to let them go. Sometimes I write things to let go of what is in me.
Wow.
But when I have to write it down, sometimes I don't let it go, it stays with me. And that is poetry. And I feel like I had anger, I had all these frustrations, and I put it down on a piece of paper. So sometimes what we think it's negative energy, is positive energy. Somebody want to hear that. Someone will get healed out of that.
Someone could be going through that.
Someone is going through that. And that's why someone says words bring healing. It's just putting faith into action. See, when someone's in the Bible, Jesus said, someone touched me and got healed. When he went to thank Jesus, he just said, your faith has healed you, which means we have powers inside us.
Yeah,
it was the faith.
We don't realize.
Yes. So sometimes when we write, and sometimes my inspiration, when they come. It's like sometimes back I used to be so frustrated when people will take away my poems and my poetry, and they will turn them into something else, and they will make them theirs, and I would be like, God, that's my piece, man. It's in that song. That is a piece of me. Nowadays, I'm not. I'm happy because the people are looking up to me.
You've impacted someone's life.
They've come to a level where they can take my words and put them into a piece of music. Oh, that's my thinking. That's my thinking doing rounds in the world. I'm
And
not
changing
jealous.
minds,
I'm
yeah.
just happy and I'm cheering. You see,
Wow. Wow. And that takes a lot of growth for
mastery.
you to come from a place where you become very possessive, because as creatives, we become very possessive of the things that we create,
Yes.
to you letting it
Go.
out there and just for it to find a life of its
All
own.
the ideas that I have in my mind are not the ideas that I had in my mind back then. Back then, I had 3 poems. I used to write 3 poems or 4 poems per year. Nowadays, I write poems anytime I want. And I don't have to go and research it.
It's
You
right
see,
there.
it's just right there. Because I decided to let go of everybody that took all the lines that I feel was so, this is the greatest line I've ever written, this is the greatest poem I've ever written. Then God's like, oh, relax, let me show you some of the greatest poem, some of the greatest poetry. So when I learned to let go, everything just started coming in.
Yeah, yeah.
Coming
And
in.
I was reading somewhere that you're a huge fan of Maya Angelou.
I-
And that made me smile because as I was starting in my poetry journey, I read everything that I could find about Maya Angelou. And if you look at my very first pieces, they really sounded like hers, because I was like, she's written about phenomenal woman. I need to
Yeah.
write about a phenomenal woman.
Uh-huh.
And she really greatly inspired me. What are some of the things about her writing and her life that really resonated with you?
Not really her writings, but her life.
Oh, yeah. She had a really,
She had a stand in her life.
yes.
She knew what she wants in her life. I want
Despite
my daughter to
everything
be
that
like
she
her.
went
I want to
through,
be
yeah?
like her. See, there are so many people that I admire in the world because of the simple things that they did. Not only people will never be remembered with how they were, but what they said. So that tells you sometimes your words have more value than money. You'll get so many people who were quoted in the world. Maybe they never had money. They were fighting for a cause. But you've seen so many billionaires dying. But you'll never they'll see the value of the money they had. But there'll come another billionaire after that.
That's true.
So it's what you do into the people's lives, not what you have in your life.
And I'll quote a line or two from Maya Angelou, where she says, I can't remember the poem, but the poem goes, people might forget what you said, people might forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel.
Yes, sir.
So
it's just a moment. Those people live the moment. Life is a moment. Live it. Enjoy it. You have friends. Go and hang out. Tomorrow you'll grow old. You'll have children. They'll be playing around you. Your grandchildren will be.
And things
That
will
is
change.
life. And then one day, the angels will come and pick you up and you'll go. That is life. You have to learn with it, and you have to learn to live with people. And when you learn to live with people, there's peace in you.
Yeah.
And that I'm at peace because of simple things.
And I know some of the things, that sense of community and that, that element of being in the now, and that sense of community that has been the lifeblood of poetry. The pandemic has affected that. What are some of the things that that you've been craving with the pandemic and the changes that it has brought in your life?
Well, the pandemic is here to stay first. The economy will change. Dogo, not only for people, but for everybody, that everybody will be affected in one or the other, either creative or non-creatives.
Yeah.
For us, it's survival. It's survival because I've seen friends, family going through a lot during the pandemic. And it's affecting me personally. When the society is not leveled,
Yeah.
you are there and someone is down here, and you all have to be here. The person who has to be there has to go down. Cindy. So, and that's why I started the mentorship for poets and all that, because at some point, people want to be poets, people want to be whatever they want to be, but are they in any situation to be in a whereby they can change their mind to be something else? Like right now, there's pandemic. Things are changing. People are not going to school. things are not being done the way they used to be done.
Yes,
Are you
that's true.
still? Do you want to stick to your old ways, or you do want to change to this? That's what
Yeah.
this pandemic is teaching all of us right now.
And you've talked about mentorship, and I'd like, that's something that I found really fascinating about what you're doing, because apart from you just being very good at what you do, being able to get lots of gigs, and we'll talk about your recent experience, you have started mentorship and training young, aspiring poets to actually learn this craft and, just pick in your footsteps. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I have a couple of poets. Actually, there are many, like 20 of them.
Okay.
But say
That's a
normally,
big number.
yeah, that's a big number, I know, and it's a big responsibility. Uh, the reason why I did this is simply because I felt like as poetry is kidogo dying, one, and secondly, poetry is taking a shape that I feel like I started, but I didn't give mentorship, and people are misusing it.
Would you
So
could you elaborate on that?
there was a
Yes.
way I write. I write my metaphors, my humor, and people don't understand it. They just put it together just because they're putting it together.
It's a style that they've
The
seen
style that I've
it.
seen growing and
I
all
mean,
that.
it's
And they
because
don't.
they saw you on Churchill
That's the
live,
thing.
and
So I feel like they are misusing the whatever we created. It was magic if it can be taught well. So I took this responsibility on me because this is a culture that's coming and people are imitating poets and that. It's there. People are talking about it. Before we were telling people about it.
yes,
You see what has
and
changed?
now they know.
Yes, now they know
Yes. Oh,
about
I
it.
remember there's a time people would be like, yeah, you're a poet like, because then around our time,
Yeah.
the only poet that was known was Caroline Deritu.
Yes.
Do you remember her?
Yeah.
So the time that we were starting out, so people will be like, "Are you like Caroline Derrito?" And I'm like, because everyone has their own style, and when you find your voice and when you find your own style, then you do not want to be called the I don't know which poet that I can use from that is very well known in the international space, and you're being called like, let's say, the George the poet of Kenya. I hate those comparisons, and
Oh
so
yeah,
every
yeah,
time
yeah,
that someone
yeah,
told
yeah,
me, "Oh,
yeah.
are you like her?" Like, no, I'm not like, yeah. But I mean, no offense to her, but that's the time that people are really grappling to understand this thing of. So, what do? You do recitals or chorovers? Yeah, so that
What
time
kind of
people were
poetry is
really, what
this?
kind of poetry is this, and how do you make money from it? And I'm really happy about the way that space has grown. But as you say, the poetry is dying. Why is that? Why is that the case?
Not really dying. I want us to enjoy the poetry before it takes a different shape. People, we live in a world of memes and all that and all that.
Yes, it's instant
So
gratification
get
and
it?
social media.
Yeah. So
So
it's killing it. So before they start killing it, once they fail as poets, they turn as memers. I'm just saying that not turning as memers. All rappers, all those creatives, they're good at it. When you look at Kenya in terms of reply and everything and comebacks, Kenya have the best comebacks.
yeah.
So these people are the kind of people we need to sit down with and let's create content.
There's something profound that you've said, and I'd like us to dwell on that a bit. Because poetry has evolved. The way Shakespeare did his poetry is not the same way that David Rubadiri did
Did
poetry. It's
poetry.
not the same way that Marjorie Oludha Magoya did poetry. It's also not the same way that we are doing poetry. It has been evolving. But then at what point do we look at what is happening, because we're in a social media world, we're in an internet world where
Yeah.
people are spending a lot of their time on social media, and you're competing for attention for an audience that is constantly watching videos and memes and all those things.
They're
How
creatives
does
and their creative mind is it's way top notch that you have to be on top of everyone else.
So my question is, how does poetry hold its own?
Because it's poetry. Poetry is like a cat.
Please
Poetry is
explain.
poetry is like a cat. It's the honor of the. It's not like a dog. It will eat when it wants. It will
Wow.
calm down when it wants. It doesn't follow rules. It bends them.
Wow.
So that's
Okay.
poetry. Poet has been able to survive because it knows itself and it knows its roots.
It's very self-assured. That
Yes,
it
and it's
doesn't
like,
need to
yes, I'm
be-
gonna perform here because I'm sure they need poets here.
And I
And
don't
they'll
need to
sit
be.
down
I
and be
don't need
like,
to be.
this.
I don't need to be a rapper.
Yes,
or
you get it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when you know your place, step on it confidently. And that's what I've been doing everywhere I go. I know my place. I go to a place where I have a rapper, I have a comedian. If I get another fellow poets, we are competitors now. But the moment I'm in a place whereby we have so many all sorts of genres, creatives together, but there's none poet. But everybody's a poet on their own. You dancing is just bending sounds with your body. It's poetry still. So poetry works everywhere. Dancing is poetry without words.
Yes. I was about to say it's poetry in mime. So
Poetry in mime, see.
Yeah.
So it's all there. So for us, the world needs it now. The poetry has been part of us. So now the world needs it. What we need to do is just to do mentorship and do well packaged, nice poetry for young upcoming poets so that they can have a place to look up to. The reason the poetry hasn't crawled for that long is because they don't have someone to look up to.
Yeah.
They don't have somewhere to look up to. They don't have a place where they'll go. This is a regular thing that we have to be here.
And
Like it
coming
used to
back
be.
to the mentorship classes, I'd like you to talk about where do you normally do it. If we have aspiring poets who would really love to learn from you, because those spaces are not very many where you can actually find someone who's willing to teach you, not just and you can talk about also. Do you teach them how to write, how to perform? What is that mentorship session like?
It's a 10-week program that I'm doing with them. We're on the 7th week actually.
All right.
It's all about everything as an artist. Learning everything as an artist. I learned it for the 10 days. I can teach you for 10 weeks. I learned it for 10 years. I want to break
And
it
you're
down
compressing it to 10 weeks.
10 weeks. So that's what I'm trying to do.
That's
I'm
a
trying to
crash
tell them-
course.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to tell them. This is how the world is. This is how it looks out there. This is what the world needs. So I'm actually giving them something, the past, the present, and the future. And we're working together towards that. So by the time I'm done, I don't know how many people will take the path. Because also I'm here to let them learn their calling. Some of them are not poets. They're forcing it. But we have to be with them because, they have to go. But by default, if they become poets, better poets, it's because they worked much harder than the people who are called poets.
That's true. That's true. For anyone who is interested in joining your classes, how can they do that?
I'm not taking any more children. I'm done with the 20.
When you talk about children, how old are they?
No, as like they're children. If I'm teaching them, passing down, so when I call them children, I'm passing down something to a generation that will go and pass it down. So if
Okay,
I
but what's the average age of those who come for mentorship?
Some of them are past above 20, 21.
Okay.
Some of them are past
Okay.
in
So it's
campuses.
basically young people, yeah?
They're just young people.
Okay. All right. Is there another cohort? Is there another time
That's what I'm
that you will
saying.
be?
I'm not
you're
taking. I'm taking another. I'm
Is
not.
it-
taking,
is it
if
that
I said
it's
I'm not taking
draining?
another lot, it will sound. But that's what I'm saying. I'm not taking another children. So I think
Is
this
it that it's draining and
No,
or
I'm
does
not.
it-
I'm not doing them justice. I used to have a dog before, and I also
okay.
I gave it out because I wasn't doing justice to it.
And is this because you've
I'm
become
busy,
quite
I'm running
busy?
everywhere. Imagine how you're running everywhere in the world.
Which is a good thing because it means that you have been able to work through building your brand to the point where now your brand is out there and everyone is looking for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about that because was it about 2 weeks ago when I was looking for you, you mentioned that you're actually traveling that day
Yeah.
to Juba. What
Yeah.
was happening in Juba?
Well, we don't know what was happening in Juba, but we love it. But we so there's something that I told you about relationships that you create with people that you don't know who they are. So it happened. We used to have events in Kenya at Power 254 and all that. And then I used to meet these Sudanese boys who lived in Kenya, and they were so interesting, and they were interested in just going around and learning the art scene, the Kenyan art scene. And So during this time, we used to hang out so much. That was actually 8 years ago again.
Okay.
Yes. So
It
10
looks
years.
like you were
So
just laying the groundwork.
you have to do
then.
that. You have to do
Yes,
that.
that
And
is
then
true.
8 years later, some of these people became radio presenters in Juba. They became whatever. They become
Wow.
ambassadors. They became what? They became what? They became what? They became what?
Mhm.
So you get it? And then they were like, yeah, we like to party and we want to party the Kenyan style. Let's call
So
our
who do we
Kenyan
call?
friends.
So who do we call?
Our Kenyan friends, let's call Teardrops, let's call Mandela, let's call Sarabi, let's go party, let's go and have fun.
Oh, so you were with Mandela and the Sarabi?
Yeah, and Sarabi.
crew.
So Mandela called me.
Nice.
Mandela was called and Mandela called me and the whole team. And then we started our
Oh.
flight. And then we went. We were there for a week, performed in a couple of events. There are so many Kenyans out there. There are so many South Sudanese people out there and Sudanese people out there who really love our craft, who really love our music, our food, our culture, our everything, who really loved hanging around us, and we loved hanging around them. And we created a bond, and we know, okay, Africa is one, and Africa has been one all along.
Yeah.
It's just boundaries that are making us look like we don't belong,
Like you're
but
different
we
people.
are the same.
Yeah, and
So it was an amazing feeling and an amazing experience. That was
Okay.
also one of the best performances actually this year for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's something that you've said that I resonate a lot with, that when you're doing something, you never know what, whose life you're impacting or who's
Yes.
noticing, but just be you and do you, and you will be surprised 8 years later someone will be like, there's a show that you did somewhere and I loved it. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it was last year. I'm greatly inspired by the life of the late Professor Wangari Maathai. And last year, when we were marking Wangari Maathai Day, I thought we need people need to be reminded of why we celebrate her life.
Yeah.
Because were it not for her, we would not have Karura Forest. Were it not for her, we would not have Uhuru Park.
Yeah.
And I feel like I felt like people have forgotten. So I decided, let me write a poem about, it's called, I think the poem is called There Is Beauty. And I wrote it. It's not because I was commissioned or anything. I just wrote it and I published it. Then recently, someone from the Wangari Maathai Foundation, and actually it's climate, not the Wangari Maathai Foundation, but there's a huge event around climate that will be happening in July. And they reached out to me and were like, we love the poem that you wrote and about Wangari Maathai. And I was like, oh, okay. So someone somewhere read the poem and loved it. And because they're like, this is exactly what we're looking at, and we are hoping that we can find a way where poetry can be used as an art form to inspire change and climate change. And I was like, wow.
It's normally like that. You don't know where it's taking you until it takes you there.
Exactly. So let's talk about, we've just talked about your experience in Juba. And so from when we last spoke 10 years ago, there has been a lot of growth. I know, and I'd like us to talk about what impact, you being on, a TV show that is very popular,
Yeah.
what effect that had, and that just the last 10 years. What has really changed for you in terms of your journey as a poet?
Okay, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Either spiritually, materialistically,
Yeah.
and every other thing. I'm not the same person I used to be. And I've met people that I only see on TV, and I'm never a fan of them, and people are fan of them, and it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Before, I used to get starstruck, but I realized that we are all stars in between us.
Wow. Okay.
We are all stars
Uh-huh.
until just let your star shine, and someone else will see it.
Your star is as bright as you believe it to be.
Yes. So if you think it's bigger,
If you think yours
you
is
stop
dim, then
getting
you're seeing others
starstruck
that
every
are,
time you meet. I don't know who and who and who and who.
and you don't think that you're a star.
You don't think you
yours
have
is
to
bright
think
enough.
about it, yeah. And that's why I've been thinking all these people, and I don't feel like it. It feels like I've been having this energy and I've been manifesting it, and it feels like the way I've been feeling it. Like if you say today, 10 10 years ago, it would be like, hey, you'll see Jakes on TV and my sisters and everybody, they will see him preaching and all that. And I'd be like, well, I think he's a normal person like me. And I think me and him can meet and say hi. It happened when he came to Kenya. I was the only artist performing and we were backstage with him. And he's like, so I've been seeing you on TV and I'm seeing you. I don't see the difference because the energy I've been reserving it for this moment.
Yeah. But you know, that takes a lot of growth internally.
Yeah.
To the level where you are so self-assured and you know who you are, what you're doing, and
Yes.
what you're all about, and
Yes.
you're very comfortable in your skin,
Yes.
such that when whoever you sit across
Feels the same.
feels the same
If
because
you
you're
go
very
and sit next to the
confident.
president, if you'll be interviewing the president, you will be interviewing the president as you're interviewing me right now. Let's talk the truth. You'll be
That's true.
as comfortable, right? But the
That's
moment your
true.
star will be that level, feel that level, you'll be as comfortable with the president. Be like, oh, I've never met someone like this. The reason why me and you we have the same stars and they're shining on the same level, and that's why we are comfortable talking about our past,
Yes, that's true.
right?
That's true.
So yeah, my past has been a journey of so many. I lost my sister in the process. It has been up and down, and I'm in the process of learning about life, learning about everything. My life was a performance. I wanted to be a superstar. I wanted to perform in those big stages, and now I perform in those big stages. I perform in those places. People know about me. What else? I have a calling. Then God is reminding me, you have a calling. What's your calling? Your calling is to call other people know their calling because I went through the same course.
Yeah,
And that's why I
and
took in the 10 people because the 10 people are the 10 years I was away first. The 10 years I was away. Did I impact any person in the first year, the second year? So I'm making up for God just in case one day I'm long in this world and be like, yeah, God, for the 10 years that you gave me, this is it.
because
But
he'll ask you, what were you doing with the time that I gave
that
you?
I gave you, it's a gift. The time that we're given is it's not it's a watch that we were given, but it's a gift. It's for us to understand the world. It's for us to understand ourselves. You know, my poetry before was more just thumping. Now it's more of letting go.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
whatever I say will be used against me. Not here in heaven.
You sound like a very spiritual person. Has that how do you find that you know coming into the work that you create and your outlook of life?
Okay, for me is life for me is like you were called on a mission here and you're here to look for specific something that you have to change. You're here for a mission. Do you know that? And for my life, that's how I put it. I'm here for a mission. I can go anytime. And that's why I'm always ready. If I'm on the mission, let it find me on the mission one day. If one day we have to go, I'm always praying I'll be here until I see my great grandchildren and all that. Be through all that journey. But at the end of it all, I'm in a mission, and that gives me power, gives me strength to see people as they are as human beings, and I want everything to be right. See, we live in a world whereby you'll find two chokora fighting instead of they're fighting for 50 shillings. One has a knife, one has 50 shillings. They're fighting over it. Someone has given it to them. Instead of someone going there and give the other chokora 50 bob and like, give us the knife now. It's just 50 shillings. We always supply policemen. We just want to record it for content. Is that a world that we like to live in? You see, that's why we are called. Me and you speak of such things in our poetry, in our lifestyle. I want to live my poetry. I want to live the lifestyle that I'm living. I want to live what I'm saying. So that if I make you believe in what I'm saying, I'm living it. It happened to me.
Now, for people who, and this could be some of those who stumbled upon this podcast and they're wondering, poetry, that thing is so difficult. We don't get it, and we
Yeah.
don't know the place of poetry in society.
Mhm.
What would you say to such people?
Until they start listening to their songs without melodies and everything, they'll see it's nothing but poetry. Those songs without melody, without beat, it's poetry.
I mean, there's no one out there that I'm yet to meet anyone out there who says Music doesn't move me. Like that they say, oh, I don't resonate with any song out there because it's singing about our life experiences, and a lot of the times when you hear someone is going through something that you are going through, then you resonate, and that's basically what makes us human.
Yes,
Yeah.
and for me, my poetry, I want someone when I'll be here, I won't be here 100 years, 200 years from now. When someone stumbles across my poetry, they'll say, "This poetry was written in 2021, and he was talking about Corona and how Corona has affected the economy. What happened? Did they have solutions? What happened during this?" If someone gets my poetry, I want them to get history of what happened. I want my art to tell things. We're not recording. It's called record. Go and record. So I have to record history.
Yeah, and
I have to record moment.
that's
See,
powerful. That's
so when you go and
powerful.
record, when someone listens to the record, they don't just listen to music. They listen to everything that you put in that, every content that was there. It happened. You see, there is no way we don't have we can't connect with our forefathers that were here before. It's because they left nothing to record.
Well, they did because
They,
for us as
it
Africans, we
it was
believe
more
in
of
the
it was
oral.
coded.
Yes, it was oral tradition of
Yes.
us telling stories by the fire, and now that we have books and the internet, now we can be able to sort of archive that for future generations.
I like it. But
Yeah.
you see the story of Mr. and Mrs. Kamau, not your children can't relate to that. Can they?
Mr. and Mrs. Kamau on the bus.
Yes, they can't because their stories are different. So those are the stories that we should be telling our children at the fire, and we tell them these are our stories. They should learn our stories. So imagine if someone does blog about that, or someone does something about that. It's there, it's stored. Nobody's stored it during our time. We had never had this kind of equipment.
I remember, I can't remember which poet it is, but there is a poet who said that the role of a poet is to be the historian, is to be a historian, to
Yes,
record.
also a librarian.
And also a librarian too, because there are so these many things that you're witnessing that you are now, articulating, and that is recorded for history.
Yeah.
Now, so we've talked about your performances, and I'd like us to look at what are some of the other projects that you've been working on and currently working on.
Well, I've had a couple of albums during the 10 years. I'm playing music. I'm playing guitar. I'm playing piano.
I'm still stuck at album. I'm
Yes,
still
I
stuck
have
at
3
album.
albums. I have 3 albums.
Yeah.
We're putting up a kitchen for artists in.
No, the
back
reason
in
I'm saying is
Eastlands.
because a lot of people associate album with music. So I'm sure someone out there will be like, I thought
Yeah, I have
Teardrops
a
is doing
poetry album.
poetry and not music.
It's
Yeah.
fused with
Yes.
with all sorts of sounds
Okay.
of everything, putting up together because people want to listen to. They're no longer on social media. They're not no longer. There are some. Most of them are not online because we are still in the process of doing copywritings and everything. But they'll be there. They'll be there. We are putting up the kitchen. We are doing the mentorship. We want to put up a show for poets. So that's what I've been doing until now.
And now, because you said, the pandemic is here to stay, like we need to adjust to that fact.
Yeah.
So what happens to the poetry, open mics, and live actual performances where someone actually goes and sits and watches poets on stage performing?
Well, honestly speaking, the country has really evolved as well. All those places that we used to go and hang out, they're no longer there. Not no longer there, not because we live in a country whereby a club, it can only be relevant maybe after 1 year. If another new club pops up, that club stops being relevant. And that was kidding art because most of the people used to go to those places to enjoy those kind of craft and enjoy those kind of food. And now there's another joint and they're doing the same as those, and you see. Now we are back to performance, but people don't gather anymore. And if they gather, it's limited gathering. And even if it's limited gathering, it has all this. It's not like it was before. We could be 100 people filled in a room and we will perform. Sorry.
And there was such beautiful energy.
And there was just beautiful energy and everything.
In being in that space and. Yeah.
Yes. Instead of being there on the Zoom, no reaction. You don't see people's faces. You don't people see. So it has changed. But I can see Kwani is back. Kwani open mic is back.
Oh yes, it is.
Slam is still there. There are a couple of events that have been there during that time until now. But yeah,
Okay.
Poets as well. I've seen a lot of new poets, new faces, writing great content, and that's why I'm very, very confident about the future with poetry.
Of
Yeah.
poetry. So as we come to a close, and I know that they'll be performing, our last piece as we finish. Um, we haven't talked about the Kenyan poetry space, like what it has gone through from the time that you came in, what you've seen it, transform, and where you see it headed. Yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on
Well,
that because I'm also at that space where I'm like, where's poetry headed?
poetry is that madman that people ignore until it's no longer there. You realize, oh, there used to be a madman in this village, in this
You've said
town.
that. You've reminded me. I don't know if you remember. There used to be a lady outside. What is that building called? Opposite Norwich Union, along Tomboya Street. There used to be a lady, and I think her sound was captured in one of the songs where she used to say "Nipe Siriki." I don't know if you remember her.
Nipe Shiriki.
I remember because I used to walk around there at that time, and then one time she just disappeared. When you're saying that, I just remembered that, her story. And, now it shows she got to a point she became so much part of Nairobi.
Nairobi, that people know that she's the landmark of that space.
Yes.
So that's the thing with poetry. It's taking shape slowly by slowly. Nobody knows about its whereabouts. Nobody where it's going. It's going. Gengeton came and took over. Do you know how it was building up? Nobody knew. Everybody was focusing on gospel. Do you know everybody was focusing? Gospel took over the country. And there were people who were non-gospel musicians. They didn't like the gospel music. They didn't know. Where did you think these people went to? These people came together, and they're high school children. They came together. They're like, we want our own kind of fun. We want to create our own kind of fun. This is what we want to create. And then they created a community, and slowly by slowly it started taking shape, and it was a culture. So by the time Gengeton was heating up, all the high school children were on their backs. And they were pushing them, to the level whereby now all the gospel artists have to do nothing but to follow the Lord. You see?
Yeah.
So there are poets out here
Okay.
doing whatever they can do.
Doing amazing things.
And I
That's
feel
true.
like a time is coming. It's a very short time.
Yeah.
And you'll see everybody doing poetry, people writing poetry, and people enjoying humor and all those satires.
Yeah.
And it will be an amazing space to be.
And I think one of the things that that has always kept me retaining that faith in poetry is that poetry will always be niche. Like it is not there to be. It's never going to be mass. It will never have mass appeal, but it has its place, and those who look for it will find it. And it's
Yes.
very okay remaining niche and just playing its role silently. So thank you, Teardrops. It has been amazing
I'm more
talking
than
to you. I'm great that we finally got to do this, and the great things that you're doing. And you can find Teardrops.
On social media.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
The camera is
Facebook,
yours.
Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Poet Teardrops Official. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. So I think we will close. It's been great, hanging out with you. I would love to get your feedback. Please write to me, Njeri Wangare, at kenyanpoet.com, and across the different social media platforms at Kenyan Poet. So we will finish with Teardrops performing one of his pieces.
Yes, this is called. Let me just write this poem. It's a new poem. You need to let me look at it. Proverb 31 man. All right. So, dear men, there is another phase of life that requires women with stronger foundation on their faith than on their face. Women that can hold designer clutch bag on their hands, but also have proverb and psalms on their palms. See, dear men, there's another phase of life that need women who will tell you the truth. Tell you that your masks are useless if they can sweep women off their feet, but they can lift their spirit. Your arms are more useless if they can change wheels but they can touch souls. So dear men, there's another phase of life that needs women who will raise your daughters to be independent, so that she won't need to get naked because bills needs to be covered. Women who will teach your daughters to fast, so that she won't be carried away by free meals. So dear men, there's another phase of life that ni women who will tell you that tukifunga ndoa tulikuwa pamoja, tulikuwa pamoja na Holy Ghost. Wacha tukitengana tutenganishwe na Holy Ghost na sio patanisho na Giddy Ghost. So dear men, there's another phase of life that needs women who will tell you the truth. Women who will speak the power into existence until you feel like the Bible had more chapters written by women more than just Esther and Ruth. Women who will tell you that having a job doesn't mean you have everything. Even Job had everything and they all vanished and Job had nothing. So Job is nothing without God. So dear men, you need to be with that Proverb 31 woman who knows that God can provide what mortal men can't afford. So dear men, you need a woman who can summon the spirit more than they can gargle the spirit. So dear men, forget your body counts, because there's another phase of life that those you have slept with doesn't count. What count is the one person you can dream with. So dear men, if you want a godly woman, then be a godly man, because God doesn't give his daughters to mediocre men.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you so much,
More
Teardrops.
than
That is,
welcome.
there's a verse right there that just, yeah, I really enjoyed that. And thank you so much for coming on set. And it's a wrap.
It's a wrap like that.
I have been your host, Njeri Wangare, and thank you. I'd love to hear your comments. Please write to me. Find me on any social platform at Kenyan Poet, whichever social platform it is, or write to me, Njeri Wangare at kenyanpoet.com. So until next time, bye-bye.